Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us for this week's Dose of RHI, where we have a special guest every week, and this week is no different. So, your story of courage, hope, attitude, and inspiration today will be with Pam Gaither. And RHI is our weekly series coming to you live from the Rehabilitation Hospital of Indiana, brought to you by our awesome sponsors, Wilson Kehoe Winningham. And today's host is our Foundation's Donor Services Officer, Uriah Steffen, who's also a past patient.
Good morning.
And take it away.
Good morning. Thank you, Mindy. Pam, thank you for joining us this morning. Just would love to hear a little bit about your experience with stroke and with RHI and how that relates to independence and life now.
Well, I came to RHI to visit a patient who had had a stroke, and when I found him in our meal group area, he handed me an application and said, I filled it out, I just don't know your social security number. This is where you want to work. It's a great place to work. And he was right. The attitude that RHI staff has with their patients and their family members is we're all a big family. We all can go through this together. And through my whole career here, I have found that to be very, very true.
Wonderful. So tell me a little bit about your history with stroke.
Well, my husband had Lyme's disease about 5 years ago. And Lyme's disease causes a lot of neurological issues, high blood pressure. So I specifically chose the neurologist we wanted him to go see. And unfortunately, we couldn't get in for 7 months. Now, our medical director here helped get us in 1 month earlier. The morning we were supposed to go to that neurologist, I had left in a wonderful blizzard of Indiana. And my husband suffered a stroke before I got back home from the grocery store. I knew exactly what my timeline was because he had texted me on the phone very clearly, and I came home within 20 minutes. He was sitting at the end of the bed, and he had the drooping face, the arms that could not match each other, and he really couldn't hardly stand. So I called 911. We went to St. Vincent's, and he had had a bleed in his head from the Lyme's disease and the high blood pressure. Well, I knew he was coming here because I know all the great things that we do here and the miracles that we see here. People, they say, will never go home walking, go back to school, go back to work. And my husband was a physician, and I knew he wanted to go back and do some of that.
Tell us a little bit about the timeline from when he had his stroke to the first visit here and also into the second visit that he had here at RHI.
Okay, the stroke occurred in January of 2014, and we were at the rehab hospital within a week of having the stroke. I was at a hospital, an acute care hospital, and I told them, we're going to start Fraser Water Protocol, and we're going to start range of motion, and they all laughed at me. You're in ICU. I said, no, rehab starts as soon as you can start it. And we did do that. And when we got here, he was basically a very dependent person. He had a peg tube for feedings with tube feedings. He could not even turn himself over in the bed. Today, I have a husband that can take off his shirt, put on his shirt, basically take off his pants except over the bottom of his feet. And RHI has given me back a husband that is functional. And it's the therapists, the physicians, the case managers. It's even our administrative staff, along with the nursing staff, that come around and talk to our patients.
That's wonderful. You mentioned that therapy really starts the first moment that you notice something, the first day that you're at the hospital. But that's not just for the patient. It's very important for the patient to understand that, but it's also for the family members.
Yes.
Would you care to
Yes.
go on a little bit about that?
Oh, I am the leader of the stroke support group, and we try to encourage the families to come to those support groups while they're in the hospital. Because if we don't start educating them on what they need to be thinking about to plan for going home, they're at a loss. we don't often take the time to do that as well as we could. I knew from my experience in work that I had to build a ramp to get my husband in the house. I had to put 2 smaller ramps inside the house because I had different levels. And it wasn't until last spring that I had the money and the effort and the time to remodel my kitchen, because my husband's always helped me cook. You have to know how to prepare for those things and share those words of wisdom with the patients, with the families, so that you can plan ahead. In December, our stroke support group meeting was talking about where you were planning to go for Christmas, where you were planning to go for New Year's. If it was a family member's house that you had to get them over a step to get in, up in the living room to open the presents, you have to plan that ahead. You can't do that as you get to the house and think, how am I going to do this? So through our support groups, we do a lot of that. Our therapists talk about it. When we send them out on home evals, they look at the house, they measure the doorways and how they can get them up. In the stroke unit, we've had patients that have gone home to their motorhome because that's their mode for their house. They travel around. But we had to figure out how to teach that to both the family member and the patient.
So for a family member, who do you think, a lot of times we think that therapy is focused on the physical and the occupational side, getting that strength back, that range of motion. But who, when we have these questions, when family members have these questions, who do we think we should reach out to?
I think we need to start with our case managers, because our case managers know a lot of those resources that are out there. They know who to send you to talk to or tell you how to do it. Not everybody knows that. And as a family member, I can tell you, you're scared. You don't know what this is going to impact your life. You know it's a big, big change, but you have no idea what's going to happen. And as a team here at RHI, we can work together to get families and the patients back home. We have to start early. We can't wait to that 2 or 3 days before they go home, because it's such a different lifestyle that you have to make that adjustment and be prepared for it.
So it really does start day one.
Yes.
The minute they get here.
It does.
The minute the patient, the family gets here.
And, our liaisons, when they are interviewing the patients out in the field, they're telling them what to expect at RHI. When they get to RHI, the rest of the team needs to start preparing them to go home.
One thing that you had mentioned earlier in our conversation, the impact that the team here can have on the patient themselves. One of the things that we love here is that we can build that custom therapy that for each individual person and family, and that's something that's very unique about our therapy here, is that we do get that very personal touch to it, and it is for each person. So share a little bit about your experience there with that one.
Well, my husband's last visit was due to a ruptured gallbladder that had been leaking for some time, and we weren't aware of it. He can be a bit of a con artist and try to stall. So I went to the schedulers and I said, when he goes to therapy, we need to handpick his therapist. Mm-hmm. That we did, and he progressed so well that he can take off the shirt, put on the shirt. If he had had a therapist that didn't push him, I might not have that beautiful outcome. Mm-hmm. We unfortunately don't know all of that about the patients that come here, because the PASA, which is the assessment we do out in the field, doesn't always get into the personality part. It may get into the psychological and the physical needs and the medical needs, but it doesn't pick up, well, you need somebody that's willing to be very, very patient or willing to be very, very assertive.
Mm-hmm. You had also shared a little story about a trip to Michigan and fishing, and I'd love to hear about that.
Okay.
Because that was actually really good.
It was. My husband has always loved to fish. I could not get him into the pontoon because it was not wide enough. I could not get him into the power ski boat because I didn't have a Hoyer lift that was attached to the dock, and I didn't need one wheeling off the dock and having my husband in the water. So I started researching how I could find a place that was handicap accessible to let him go fishing. Well, I ended up with the Natural Resources Department, and they had 2 places within 30 minutes of our family home up there that I could take him, that he could go fishing. He went fishing, caught trout. I came home and fixed the trout dinner, and we celebrated because that was something he hadn't been able to do. Yes, he could enjoy the water and the fine air, and he could go on trails, but it took knowing that you had to look other places to get the needs met that you want. You can't just go down to the bait and tackle shop and find out where a handicap accessible place is.
The joy and the happiness that you saw in your husband's face at that time, that had to bring so much emotion to you.
I did enjoy that. It was wonderful. I mean, I was able to give him some pleasure that he really already enjoyed and that he hadn't been able to participate in because of some of the barriers.
Do you think that was an independence booster for him and a confidence booster for him?
Absolutely. He's already said, we're going back.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you, Pam. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners here this morning?
RHI is one of the best premier places to have recovery. Come and enjoy it with us.
Is there anything you'd like to say to anybody who's considering making a gift in particular in honor of your husband or you?
Gifts allow us the opportunity to provide water ski equipment, to provide archery equipment, to provide many things that we can't go out and just buy off the shelf. So please consider donating to RHI and the foundation, our sports program, all of our issues here in honor of a patient. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. And thank you to our sponsors, Wilson Kehoe Winningham. We hope that you felt inspired, that this story that Pam shared may have fueled your inspiration, your courage, your attitude, given you some hope. And join us again every week, Wednesday at 9 a.m. If you would like to make a gift in honor of a past patient, Dr. Gaither or Pam Gaither, you can click on the link provided. Every dollar helps us make this place, RHI, the best possible rehabilitation in Indiana for the patients and the families that we serve. So join our RHI family and make a gift. Thank you and have a great day.